Good Monday night to you here. A little bit late, couple minutes late, but I mean, come on, it's within 5 minutes ish, so we're close here on Midnight Movie Talk. Just got out of the wonderful Northman. Now, this is going to be an interesting stream tonight. I hope you guys are ready. We're going to go on a tangent here about film Twitter shortly, but let's talk about the Northman. This is Robert Eggers. He's back, of course, from The Witch and The Lighthouse, and now the $90 million Northman. Now, uh, you've seen the trailer. I don't need to go into what the movie's about. You guys know there's no point to go over the plot points. We're not going to do that. That's not what we do when we talk about movies. We talk about general ideas and overall thoughts about the film. And when I first came out of the film, as you guys may know, I had a few issues with it. I stated that I can't believe that Focus gave Robert Eggers 90 million for this movie. Okay, let's explain why. When you watch The Northman, you're very much in the Green Knight territory. Okay, so when I say that, you've seen The Green Knight, you know what I'm talking about. You're talking about a cinephilic adventure film. Okay, if we just want to pare it down to the very bare minimum, the revenge film, right? You could even say it's the Robert Eggers version of The Lion King, but it's very much like The Green Knight in feel. Okay, you knew that. You knew what Robert Eggers does. He loves cinematography. He loves very slow burn cinephilic stuff. That's what you're going to get from him. And that's what you get here. Okay, everything that you expect, you get. Now, the issues with the film are very simple for me. When I watch a film, I'm watching on two levels. One, for the cinephile guy inside. And then the other one is for the kid who grew up in Columbus, Ohio, who went to movie theaters and just loved watching films like Lost Boys. And yes, admittedly, Cocktail. It's terrible, stupid, fun, entertaining films. Okay. Going back to the 80s and all the wonderful things that they gave us. And when you sit through the Northman, what you're basically subjected to is Robert Eggers' artistic vision, which we know what that is. When you see The Witch, when you've seen The Lighthouse, you know exactly what you're going to get. And yes, you get another fart joke in this, just like The Lighthouse. The problem is that Robert Eggers leans too heavily into the cinephile side of filmmaking for me personally. I love I love a film that has tremendous cinematography and is directed on point and just flows and has all the elements that you want for filmmaking. But I also want a tale that is, at least for me, accessible from an emotional standpoint. And that's where this film, I think, suffers, is that you don't feel the emotion other than Alexander's, rage. Obviously, that's very clear. But the emotion that I'm looking for in a film, I just don't feel. It feels very cold. Okay. And I understand that's what you get with Eggers. What I'm trying to tell you guys here tonight is that for me, that just doesn't resonate with me. And when you sit through it, it's 2 hours and 20-ish minutes long. It's too long. It's another of these films that really needed to be pared down to say 150. I mean, I'd even take 2 hours. That's 20 minutes gone. That's a lot of film. If you watch a film and you sit there and watch for 20 minutes, I guarantee you're going to say that you sat there for longer than 20 minutes, because 20 minutes, it's a long time, and it feels even longer in a film. So the point is that if you get rid of 20 minutes here, this is a stronger film. Okay, that's the first thing. It's a basic thing. It's always, every single time that we talk about movies, it's always about filmmakers who don't know how to pare their film down and get it leaner and meaner, which this film needs. But here's the issue I have with the Northman, and it happens time after time. We see it happen with these first screenings. This is where I'm going to drill down here tonight. It's going to be less a review and more a condemnation of film Twitter and this incessant need to say this is the greatest thing ever, especially when you see the first. You're the first person to go see it. Who gives a crap if you're the first person to see it? It doesn't matter. You review the film the same as if you're the first, or if you watch it opening weekend, or 2 months after it comes out. It's not that hard. You have to stay in your zone of reviewing a film where it doesn't matter if it's the first, last, or whatever screening you're going to see. There are too many people in this that get too excited about seeing a film first and they overvalue a film. And that's what happened here with The Northman. When I look at these reviews and I pull up Rotten Tomatoes, I see a score of, it's in the 90s. I got to look because it changes all the time, right? As soon as the film is about ready to come out, more and more people are reviewing it. So that number is constantly fluctuating. But it was in the 90s. Okay. For me, my score on The Northman is a 70%. It is a C. Okay. That's because, again, the emotional resonance is not there for me in this film. It is cold, it's sterile, it's harsh, it's everything. So many beheadings, and that was coming. I knew that I was expecting a very savage film, and it has those elements, no question about it. But I also want to feel something when I watch my film. I want to feel a connection with the film, no matter what it is, even if the emotion is something like Hereditary, which is pure and utter just disgust. I don't even feel that here with the Lighthouse, with The Northman. I don't feel it. I didn't feel it with The Lighthouse either. I felt it more with The Witch. I think The Witch is his best film of these three. I really do. But again, we have this tendency now to fly to junkets. Okay. If you guys, I went on this rant last week. Studios fly critics and movie people to events such as the world premiere of The Northman in London. So if you're based in LA, they'll fly you all the way to London, put you up in a really nice hotel, pay for your food and drink and all that fun stuff, and wine and dine you. Okay. That's great. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. If you stay true to the fact that when you come out of the movie and you really feel how I feel about it, you are able to say those things. I can't. You can't get invited to go to London and come out of it and have the reaction I'm having to The Northman. You have to understand that part and parcel, quid quo pro, with going to these events is coming out and accentuating the positive. If I were to do that, if I was built with the kind of person that would be able to come out of a film and just talk about the positive, say, oh, the cinematography is stunning. Of course, it's Eggers. You knew it would be. Okay. You would say the performances are very good across the board. Again, but you're not drilling down on the actual feelings for the film. Okay. And again, this film is sterile. It just doesn't have that emotional resonance that you need in a blockbuster, even though this is not a blockbuster. But listen, when you spend 90 million on it, this was a $90 million film. That is a ton of cash that Focus, and really Universal. Okay, Focus did not give Robert Eggers 90 million. Universal owns Focus, and Universal said, okay, we'll float you the 90 mil if you believe in this guy. But you got to remember, The Witch and The Lighthouse are both, one's I think The Witch is at 40 million worldwide, and Lighthouse is 18 million. So his prior track record at box office are two films under 50, way under 50 for The Lighthouse. And you just gave a filmmaker 90 million for his artistic vision. I'm all for that. Let a director do what they want to do. But if I'm a studio giving Robert Eggers $90 million for what I just saw, someone's going to get fired at Focus. When this film opens, and it was not going to open well, this film will not work with the average moviegoer. Okay. I'm not even talking about, the average moviegoer who goes to see really dumb films. I'm talking about a middle of the road moviegoer who goes to see The Northman. They're going to walk out and they're going to be not happy with what they just saw. They're going to definitely give it a low cinema score. There's no question in my mind that that's what's going to happen, that this film is going to get a low cinema score of D. I would say minimum C. The best case, maximum be C. And I think anything below that, I will be shocked if it gets even in the B range for cinema score, which means that's what the average person thought of the film. Let's get some comments, and this is perfect. This is exactly what I want to do on these midnight movie talks, is get to your comments and then riff on those. JT, thanks for watching here tonight. I can't wait to see The Northman next week, and hey, more power to you. Go for it. I mean, it's not a film that I can't say you should go see. I'm just telling you that to have a reaction of this is a terrific film and this is, epic filmmaking and, a classic, which I read some people say, like, really? I mean, I just, man, I did not see that tonight at all. Do you think Northman's Rotten Tomato score will fall as more critics review it? Well, I just told you the prediction for the cinema score, Aaliyah. That's going to be low. It's going to be a C or lower. So let's go. I'm going to say a D. If anything, it's a C minus. Okay, I'll fall on a C minus, giving it the benefit of the doubt. But that's a very bad cinema score. Okay, so I think that the Northman's review on Rotten Tomatoes right now, as I look, let me type it in. I should have had that going. That's what I get for walking out of the movie and coming right on here. Is that I think it's going to end up going down, yes, because the first people who saw it, remember, we just had this whole thing. Okay, it's at 88%. It was in the 90s when it first debuted today. So it's going down right now just a little bit. It's at 88%. So right now I'm looking at, let's see what I got for percentage of with the total number of rotten reviews. I would come in rotten in this, by the way. It'd be rotten. It would be on the higher end of rotten, 6 rotten, 43 fresh. And here's a couple. Christy Puchko from Mashable. Eggers' execution feels hollow. So I said, it's sterile. It just doesn't have any, no fun. Peter, again from Variety, we're on the same page. It's dull and hardly any fun. I mean, it's not fun. And either was The Green Knight, right? The Green Knight was no fun. That's the problem with that film. It could have been sort of fun. And I'm not suggesting I wanted some, commercial property when I watched Green Knight. I love David Lowery. I still think he's really one of our best young up and coming ish filmmakers. I go back to Ghost Story. Ghost Story is one of my favorite films of the past decade. It's maybe all time. I mean, the way that film spiritually locks in at the end is just next level. It's rare. It's a rare skill to do what he did. And I think that's what Eggers is missing from his films, is a spirituality, if you will, is that emotional connection, that one-to-one wall-breaking thing that you feel in your heart when you watch a film. That's what Eggers doesn't have. He has a sterile feel. And it's artistic. It's like looking at art, but there's no emotion. And it's okay. You can have that, but you still, what I want is to have both, right? You want to have the art and the emotion, like Ghost Story. That's what you want. So yeah, I think that the Rotten Tomato number will probably go down as more critics see it. I don't think it's I think right now The Lighthouse is my least favorite of these three. I like the artistic value of The Lighthouse, but it's so, come on, that's a very inaccessible film. Talk about zero emotion, The Lighthouse. Although I will say William Dafoe's that monologue is the best. I mean, that's probably my favorite moment of an Eggers film, but I would say The Witch 1, I would put this 2, and I'd put The Lighthouse 3. But they're close. I'm just telling you, I like Robert Eggers as a cinematographer, as a director of style, but again, as a director of substance, no, not for me. It's just not there for me. The other thing with early screenings, with critics seeing it first, the hype is strong after other people see it. The early reviews don't be as strong anymore to be negative. Yeah, I think that's the thing is as I come to you tonight and we talk about this on Midnight Movie Talk, and I say that I did not have the same reaction to this film that a lot of people did who first saw it a week ago, is that's again, that getting caught up in the hype of the first screening. And there's a lot of people who do. Okay. You need to find voices that don't get caught up in the hype. I have very few people that I trust with my film reviews. In other words, if someone sees a film and says, this is really, you need to watch this, first of all, they know what I like. But second of all, I trust them because I believe that they are very truthful with their words. And one is Scott Menzel, Hollywood Critics Association, very good friend. But what he believes in what he says. There's a lot of people in this business that just say things to get their name on an FYC box. Okay. They sort of believe it, but they accentuate it and they hype it to a level just to get, look, I'm on a box. Look, I'm on an ad. Who gives a shit? Doesn't matter. It doesn't pay the bills. I mean, really, it's ego. If you love the film, that's great. But if you're trying to get a movie quote, a pull quote, what are you in this for? What are we doing, man? Get your head on straight. Gladiator and Braveheart are a good example of films that are brutal but still invoke emotional resonance. Absolutely, Julian. I was watching this film thinking Braveheart at times, but then no. The emotion of Braveheart. There's not a moment in this film that touches the emotion of Braveheart, even though they're very similar in feel. But as you know, with Eggers, you're going to get that weird shit. Okay, you just know he's going to go off into left field really hard, leaning hard there, and he does. And that's why I tell you that when the cinema score comes out, it's going to be low because the average person does not gel with that. And there's nothing, listen, that's okay. Again, no one's saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying when you give a filmmaker $90 million to make a film and you let him make this that is opaque for most moviegoers, if I'm a studio, I would never want to be the guy who said, yeah, I gave Eggers 90 million to make this movie. Well, first of all, you're gonna be out of work. Okay. Second of all, another studio is probably not going to hire you. You're like, you're the guy who gave Eggers 90 million for the Northman. That's good. You're never working again because this movie is going to crash. It's going to have a very low, under 10 million opening, and then it's going to just disappear. There's no way this film like pops some crazy number like 25 million. I just, again, when I look at that 90 million number, I just am right. Like, that's wrong. There's an extra zero, 9 million, 9 million. Okay. That makes sense. Not 90. Did you just say 90? Eggers is not a mainstream director, of course. That's exactly, Rob. I mean, he's not. And that's what I'm saying. I'm shocked they'd give him that kind of money to make a film. He's just not. Again, Robert Eggers works in a very unique space, an artistic space. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing. It's cool. Some people will really appreciate it. But what I'm saying is when you get that money to that point and you're serving up that kind of cash to make a film, you can't have a director that gives you something that is going to just be there. People are going to just absolutely be turned off by this. They're not going to love the film. There's just no way. I've said low cinema score. And that means that repeat business is going to go down after it opens, probably at like 6.5, 7 million. When it comes out in 11 days, it's the 22nd. So, by the way, the review embargo did break today, so I'm not breaking any. You're not breaking any rules. I'm not. Oh, you guys snitch on me. Hey, Eric's on there. He's breaking the embargo. I think I actually just got the invite as I'm talking to you guys. I just got the invite for Doctor Strange 2. That's pretty exciting. I'll have to say yes to that. Jedi Cat, love your takes, Eric. Thank you, Jedi Cat. Appreciate that. Let's go to Drew Ryan. Will this hurt Eggers' reputation with studios moving forward? Yes, it will, except for A24 and perhaps Neon, but no major studio is ever going to give him this kind of money again. And again, I just can't believe it happened. And then there's going to be some people like, well, just let him make his movie. Well, I didn't say he can't make his movie. I'm just saying I can't believe they gave him 90 million to make the movie. It's crazy. It's insane. 20 tops. I mean, tops. Billy. This is what I worried about too. Production value is great, but the story needs to resonate. It doesn't. There needs to be some entertainment value or emotional connection in a movie like this. There is a little bit of entertainment. I would say this. If I'm going to compare it, I'm going to say this. It's very much like The Green Knight with just a little bit more accessibility, because the Green Knight is not accessible right. It's like there's zero really moments of tremendous like, oh wow, I'm totally into this film. It's very, again, sterile. Aloof. You're just kind of removed from the screen, and that's what this is. But at least there's some fights and beheadings and mayhem and violence and things. So there's at least that. But it's just go into this expecting The Green Knight slightly elevated from a accessibility standpoint, and then you will be about where this film is. But I think you guys probably knew that. But I really thought for 90 million that they would get a little more out of their money as far as accessibility. Saw Northman last week and enjoyed it, but I agree it's a really cold and harsh film. Yeah, I expected a little more, a lot more emotional resonance. Yes, Mark, that to a T. It is a beautifully shot film. You're going to get cinematography from him. Although I will say, even here, I would take the Green Knight cinematography over the Northman cinematography. I think also some of the CGI in this film is, I would just say, not fantastic. The volcano looks very CGI-ish, especially at the end when we go to the volcano for the final battle. I'm not going to ruin anything else. I'm just going to say that it just looks a little bit, doesn't look great. Okay, for 90 million, I expect the volcano to be looking kind of real. I feel like there was also an element here for Robert Eggers when he made this film that there's a fair amount of effects in this, more so than The Lighthouse for sure, more so than The Witch for sure. And I feel like this film would be better served with even fewer effects. Now, I'm not saying it's effect heavy. There's times when I felt like this was like 300. Okay, it has a feel of that, but remember, 300 was accessible. It's Zack Snyder, totally right. Everyone loved 300. Massive outperform, brought a sequel that was terrible, but this is not that. But it has a similar-ish, the violence in it. Okay, let's just go there. But what I will say also about the when I watch this film is that I feel like Eggers would have been better served by getting rid of some of the CGI. It's not a CGI fest. The whole thing's not, but I just feel like there's even some things that you watch and you go, that looks computery. That doesn't look organic. And I feel like that's something that I was a little bit unexpected for me. I thought that it would be even more steeped in basically we're in Ireland. I believe there's a lot of it in Ireland, Iceland. They're shooting these things, that on location. And you definitely feel that, but there's times where I feel like they could have leaned into it harder. Akers could have done more with that. I'm not surprised the studio is concerned with what they got. New Yorker article. Yeah, I mean, I didn't read the New Yorker article, Mark, but I know that there is I'm going to go read it now because I heard that there was, I mean, I imagine the studio, because there were test screenings. I've heard that. I've heard about the test screenings where the audience was like, what? And that's what I saw. I saw that film. If I was going to a test screening and came out, and I've been to test screenings, we've talked about that here, is I would come out and I would say that this is not going to work with the average moviegoer at all. And that's okay for A24. And usually it's okay for Focus, but not at that price tag at 90 million. That's the problem. I'm going to go see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. You're seeing it tomorrow, JT. I'm going to see it on Wednesday. That I have really high hopes for. I think that is, talk about accessible. How is that going to be inaccessible? I have no questions that that's going to work and work really well. So I'm excited for that. Kevin, Universal Pictures hit films going to be Jurassic Park and Minions Rise of Guru. Yes, Universal is going to have a huge summer with Jurassic Park Dominion, right? It's going to be massive, that film. That's talk about a film for everybody, a 4-quad film for everybody, including cinephiles, just everyone. Anyone who goes to movies will go to Jurassic Park, the latest. And then Minions Rise of Gru, I think that'll do well. We have just enough time away from that franchise to bring it back. That will be another winner this summer. So Universal, they have had some trouble with, as we know, Ambulance, not the Wedding Planner. Oh God, the whatever they have, Jennifer Lopez. I actually didn't hate that movie, and I'm totally forgetting what. Marry Me, thank you. How, geez, Marry Me. And then they had something else that was in January that was completely forgettable. Some film. They have not had a bunch of hits. They have The Bad Guys next week. Hopefully that'll work out for them. Any family film is going to do pretty well, as we just saw with Sonic making 72 million. Families need things to see at the multiplex. Also today, I want to say this, that, and this brings us to this, Kevin, good. Doctor Strange is going to debut at 185, 190. I think it's even higher. Here's the deal. We are back theatrically 100% to where we were in 2019. Look at Sonic. Sonic opened at 58 million right before the pandemic, right before we were told to lock ourselves in our houses. And that opened at 58 million. Now you have this film, Sonic 2, opening at 72. So you're increasing by roughly 25%. You're a 25% increase over when we weren't talking about COVID. So if we're still talking about COVID box office, it's over. Let's just stop that crap. Let's move forward saying that things have returned to as normal as we're going to get. And certainly I see it everywhere. You're seeing it, and these numbers prove it. Even No Way Home in the middle of Omicron did insane numbers. So, that whole narrative is gone. People are back in the marketplace. And that's why Doctor Strange is going to be a huge hit. I think easy 185. I think it goes possibly to 200. It's going to be a huge hit. It's a 4-quad film, young, old, male, female, and everyone in between. and that's the film that's going to do the number that possibly is going to break 200 because it's an MCU. And MCU, as strong as the Batman's been, 735 million worldwide. That's a really strong number. But listen, that's not a family film. This thing's going to a billion easy, even if it's just average. Doctor Strange 2. By the way, interesting that they're only showing this film. I just got the invite. The invite is on that Monday. So I'll see it that Monday. And I think the embargo breaks that same night. So we'll talk about that film on, what is that, the 2nd of May. It's kind of a late embargo. So there must be a whole bunch of stuff that happens in Doctor Strange, as you'd imagine, in the Multiverse of Madness, that makes the studio say, we don't want people talking about this film ahead of time. We saw how many times that critics have just been unable and unwilling to not spoil things, like the whole Harry Styles thing, right? In the completely forgettable Eternals. That's the one thing I was looking forward to, is the end credits, and we had it ruined by Variety and Vanity Fair, by the way, owned by the same owner. So that was curious, but that's why probably Disney's like, listen, let's not even put this thing out here that early. Because people are going to ruin it on Twitter, because no one can just keep their mouth shut and let other people enjoy their movies. Like, you didn't see me call on the Northman and say, this is what happens. He does. No, it's never about plot points. Why would you do that? We're talking about general thoughts about a film, not about this is how it starts, this is how it middle, and this is how it ends. Like, that's for you to figure out when you go to see the movie. Younger audience won't be hyped for the Northman. Agreed. That's going to be a major issue for them. They're not going to be in. We just saw it with Ambulance this past weekend, which is more accessible than the Northman. And Ambulance only got to 7? Whatever. It's under 10. So Northman, if Ambulance couldn't get to 10, the Northman sure as hell isn't, because it really doesn't work for the younger person. So Ambulance didn't have that crowd either. So I think it's going to be a similar low 7 million or under. And again, for a $90 million film, that is not going to cut it. Let's go to Mark again. Redeeming Love. That's right. Redeeming Love was the name of that forgettable Universal movie. I never saw it. Oh, and 355. That was a dud for Universal. What a boring film the 355 was. I wanted to love it. I really did. But whoa, that movie should have gone straight to streaming. I was like the only person in the theater that night when it opened. It's like, hey, yeah, let's go. Oh, shit. That should have been straight to streaming, straight to Peacock for this sucker. Let's go to Kevin again. Do you think the 20th Century Studios will have a comeback this year? I got to look at their slate. You know, I just got done on Awards Ace putting together all the films that are incoming, and I got to think. They have the David O. Russell, right? They have the untitled David O. Russell project, as it's called. It's not called Canterbury Glass. Everyone wants to call it that. It has not officially been called that. That is a 20th century film. And then I got to look beyond that. But I know I'm just thinking awards wise. Feel free to hit me with what they have. Truthfully, I don't have their slate in front of me. I should, because it's still early in the year. But I tend to get so wrapped up in awards films, sometimes I forget about everything else until it kind of arrives. But 20th Century, as you guys know, it's Disney. I mean, there's really very little separation between those two. When Disney bought 20th Century, they just basically incorporated it into the system. And there are still people that work over there in, on Pico. Whenever I go to see a screening over at 20th Century, it's always it's this really awesome historic lot, and it just feels like it's just dead because they got rid of a lot of people that work there. So it's kind of like a ghost town. It's a ghost town studio. But listen, they still obviously have Deadpool, even though that's now co-opted into Disney. But that they have to still put that 20th Century banner on there because it's going to be R. Even though I think we're at the point where it's like, Disney, you can put an R-rated movie out. We're not going to lose our shit over it. JT again, heard Northman had reshoots because of test screenings. And so, yeah, I mean, listen, the test screening for the Northman, I can't imagine what the original test screening was like, because the one I saw tonight, if you put the film that I saw tonight, the Northman, in front of a test screening audience, if you've ever been to a test screening, you got to understand these people that come to these movies, sometimes you're like, where did these people come from? And they have very interesting opinions about films. Usually they want things that are very simple, really basic. And this film is not that. So I can't imagine how the test screening went, Ager's first vision of this film versus what they ended up with. Maybe they probably added more action, would be my guess, which the film does have. That's why I said it's superior to the Green Knight in a watchability standpoint from just the action, because Green Knight has so little of it. I mean, it's just a slog, that film. This at least has sporadic moments of flourishes of violence that keep it going. But again, you're just no emotional connection to the film. Zero. It's just like hollow. It's just a big uh, goose egg when it comes to how you feel about a film. And I think ultimately that's why we go, isn't it? To come out of a movie and feel pumped like I was with X. X is my favorite movie of the year. If anyone says that The Northman is better than X from a pure movie going standpoint and enjoying yourself as you watch a film, no chance. X smashes The Northman. Okay. So X, that's the kind of film. That's a cinephilic horror film, but it's also accessible and it has the emotions, it has the action. There's very little drag in that film. The Northman has a lot of things that a lot of people are not going to connect with. That's what I'm saying. It's another example of film Twitter not being a part of reality. Okay. And reality is that there are, and I'm not even talking about the average test screening person. I'm just talking about the average person who goes to the movie. They're not going to connect with this film. And this is why people have a problem trusting film critics sometimes, a lot of times, because when you recommend a movie like The Northman and you say it's the best film of the year, if you have people that trust you, they're going to go to see it and then they're going to come out and say, really? That's not the experience I had. Okay. So again, find a voice that speaks to you and what your tastes are, but also is very transparent with their views about films. And they're not just saying things to get put on posters or quoted, pull quoted. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't pay the bills. Love Dex. Mark, this is a great way to end this thing tonight, because the landslide scene in X, that is a moment when you absorb that scene in X, you are experiencing next level, almost spiritual, right? A connection to film that is just it's very hard to get to that point as a filmmaker, to deliver that kind of emotional impact in one scene. And the landslide scene in X is everything that I love about film, and I want more of that as this year continues. I wish I had that same feeling at least once during the Northman, but I didn't. I felt emotionally flat and frankly disinterested throughout the majority of it, overlong, all the things we talked about earlier. And it's disappointing. I mean, I want to come on here and be really excited about a movie like X. I mean, I'd go off and talk for 3 hours about how awesome that film is. But unfortunately, The Northman's not that. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about it when it comes out here in 11 days. Thank you guys for watching here tonight. And every night we do one of these midnight movie talks. We will talk about The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent on Wednesday night, probably a little bit late because I think that screening starts at 7 and my guess is 2 hours. So a little bit late on the midnight movie talk on Wednesday, but this next time we'll go. I have a feeling I'm going to like that one and we'll have a lot to talk about. That's going to be good. And one last comment tonight from Mark. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Well said about the X landslide scene and also Ghost Story. Yeah, I mean, Ghost Story. Ghost Story, the conclusion of Ghost Story is as spiritually connecting and just mind-blowing as I have maybe ever experienced watching a film. The end of that film, the symphonic way that he manages to bring that film together and to hit you spiritually the way that he does at the end of Ghost Story, those are the moments we live for. And Landslide was similar. But I mean, the end of Ghost Story is one of the best conclusions to a film ever. That's all I got to say. That's going to do it for tonight, guys. Thanks. Like, subscribe, hit me on Twitter anytime, and we'll talk again on Wednesday night. Good night.